as promised, I have a quick tip for you about building a team. So many of you are out there, and we've talked about ABA, and it's important that you start ABA, and that you start ABA no matter what's going on, right? And I've said to you, if you're having problems making that a reality and making it happen, I hope that you will write and tell me what's holding you up. If it's funding, write to me and we'll do a segment on how you can get funding to start ABA. If it's that you don't have an ABA provider, then you're probably going to want to start with Cardi Learning and Skills. And that's something that you can do today. You can sign up and do Cardi Learning and start to educate yourself about how you are going to be a really great ABA provider and be able to train other people. And there are those of you who are around the world who are doing this. And you guys are my inspiration. You are my heroes because, man, you're pioneers, you're getting it done, you're bringing ABA to places in the world, and you're creating change not only for your child, but for the entire world. And honestly, I admire you so much. I hear from you guys about how you're doing things, and what the tough parts are, but we know that you got to build a team, right? You can't be thinking that you can do ABA completely by yourself, just one parent. We know, because we talk about this all the time, that generalization is one of the really important keys to doing quality ABA therapy. And if we're going to invest the time and the effort, and we want to invest the time and the effort because our children are worth it, then we got to do it right. And so we have to plan for generalization from day one. And the way we're going to get to generalization is by making sure that we change things up, including people. So you can't have one person who's constantly the only teacher, because what we will have done is limit the child so that they can only learn from one person, only respond to one person. We would never want to do that. So you gotta have a minimum of 2 people in order to really be striving for generalization. And I think to stay sane and centered and healthy and well, you really need to have 3 or 4 people. If that's not possible, you're going to make it work with 2, right? But you got to be mindful of keeping yourself centered and not making yourself ill. But when you're adding to your team and we've talked before about deciding, are you paying people or are you getting volunteers? And later on today, we'll show the Maddie video, a wonderful story of a family who is getting it done with paying $0. They're not paying any of their therapists. They have volunteers from their church and from their community, and their child is making tremendous progress, and they're using Cardi Learning and Skills. It's a fabulous, fabulous thing. So it can be done with volunteers, but you got to make the decision about, are you doing volunteers or are you paying people? But when you start to bring people into your home, you have to be mindful of safety. So a couple of quick tips about how we can screen people. We've set up an interview with them, and we've met in a neutral third. We don't bring them to the home for the first interview, because you're not going to allow people into your home until you have an idea who they are, and that you really want to be. We heard this from Kathy Visconde, that you really got to do a second interview. That's really, really important to do the second interview. And I think it's important between the first interview and the second interview to do a bunch of research as well, because it's so important that we start ABA therapy, but what trumps that above everything else is that our children have to be safe, right? I know I'm preaching to the choir, but if you're going to bring people into your home to work with your child, they have to be trustworthy. They just have to be. And so guideline number 1 is trust your gut. If you are getting they might have the perfect resume, they might have the perfect references, they have worked with children with autism forever, and your brother-in-law says, I would trust them with my life, but if your gut says, guess what? It's an I trust your instincts more than anybody else. Sometimes you don't know what the feeling is. Doesn't matter. Your gut says no, it's a no. And I think stop questioning yourself at that moment. Just, there will be somebody else. If you're getting a vibe, it's done. You don't want to be in a position where you're saying, oh my gosh, why didn't I listen to myself, right? Done. Boom. But don't stop there, right? Don't just go off of your gut. Check Megan's Law. There's a website that you can go to that's Megan's Law. You can Google it. I think it's just meganslaw.com. And you can look up who the registered sex offenders are in your area. Well, you know what? And I think that that's something that everybody should just do anyway, even if you're not hiring therapists, not having volunteers. Just know who the people are in your neighborhood, but realize that that's only a limited piece of information, because there are people who haven't been caught and there are people who are about to be offenders for the first time, right? But so we don't take that as the be all end all, but it's really beneficial to go on Megan's Law and take a look at what's happening in your neighborhood. Better safe than sorry, right? Get yourself a video baby monitor. You can get them at most toy stores. You can get them really inexpensively on something like Craigslist or at garage sales. Almost everybody who has had a baby in the last 5 years had one, and they're selling them. So sometimes you can get one for $1 that works just fine, but you want to have a video baby monitor, and maybe you want to have a couple of them. And I think that you want to do this for a couple of different reasons. First of all, when somebody's working with your child, you want to ensure that your child is safe and okay, right? But also it's an opportunity for you to learn. If you've got a really good rock star therapist who's in there and working with your child, you're going to be able to be in the other room, maybe being a little bit productive, but focusing a little bit on what's happening and learn so that you're going to be a better member of the team. And if it's somebody who's not a rock star, who you're needing to help and support and help them, then you want to be watching and seeing what's happening so that you can give them notes afterwards to say, loved it when you did this, here's what you need to do instead of this, here's another way of thinking of this. And don't be bashful about that. Don't let somebody be given shoddy therapy to your child. If they really want to be a part of your team, they will be responsive to the notes that you're giving. And if they're not, bye-bye, there will be somebody else. Check references, make them get multiple references, and do check them, but don't stop there. And at the end of the day, look for people who are incredibly passionate, who are imaginative, who are creative, who seem excited to work with your child and are willing to think outside the box and willing to learn. And I think always the passion is one of the huge, huge factors. If somebody's passionate about something else, that passion is capable of being transferred to helping your child learn. I don't know very many people who, when they see a child who doesn't have a capability and that is given a capability, I think that most rational people get excited. And somebody who doesn't, you don't want on your team.